Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about how the CW only cares about one thing, and it's not necessarily you. It's, you ready for this? It's being a player in the game. See, if you ever watched any of my videos where I'm talking about CW or UPN or WB, it's kind of hard because I never really specifically state them by name in the title. I think the closest one you'll probably find is fake representation or diversity, something like that in CW shows. I talk majorly about how CW came to be and why I think they just do the checkmark system when it comes to the diversity and stuff. But here's the thing. The reason why I am making this video, because I was watching this video lately, because as we all know, there was a huge bloodbath about like a week and a half ago on a lot of major networks, and especially that of the CW, because the CW isn't really known for canceling that many shows in the last couple of years. They did in the beginning, but actually no way, even in the beginning they didn't cancel that many shows. It was somewhere in the middle. So the beginning is when they started, the middle is like probably like a decade and a half ago, and then now recently. So they really haven't canceled nothing in like majorly like a whole bunch of shows in like a long time, right? And so this came to a shock to many people because they watch these shows. I mean, people love these shows, and they was very shocked to see these shows go. I myself personally am still upset that Batwoman got canceled. I thought it was pretty good. Season 3 was really good. But other shows I either never watched or I just checked out of. Some shows I wanted to watch, like In the Dark. I kind of always wanted to watch that, but I never had a chance. And so I'm so now I can't even catch up because I don't even know what app is on. It's probably on Netflix, and I don't do Netflix. And so like now that it's canceled, it's like, hey, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? And so I'm still mad they canceled Containment years ago because that was a good show. Anyways, and so a lot of people have been really upset, and I was shocked that they not surprised, but canceled the Charm reboot. Now, I stopped watching the Charm reboot somewhere in the second season. The first season was all right, but that's about it. But I was shocked that they canceled that because a lot of people actually like that. I was also shocked that they canceled like Dynasty because a lot of people watch that and it's been getting renewed. So with it getting renewed, I assumed it was like a pretty good show, and I thought about one day watching it, but I just never did. But from what I've heard from these group of guys on YouTube, it was one of their lowest rated like shows ever, but it kept getting renewed because of that, of the fan base. And so like, and also with that whole Roswell, New Mexico show, I was surprised that got canceled because, you know, people actually watch that stuff. And still to this day, I'm questioning how in the world is Riverdale still on TV? Because Riverdale sucks. But here's the thing about Riverdale. I read this in an article years ago. The first season actually didn't do that well on TV. And in fact, they was thinking about probably canceling it until it went over to Netflix to stream. And then everybody caught up with the show and it became popular because of that. So that is what keeps it afloat. Netflix. And then the fan base grew, and then the fan base won't leave the show alone. However, some hardcore Riverdale fans have told me they just checked out seasons ago because they just can't take it no more because the plot lines have gotten really stupid now. But it still has that fan base of young people who watch it. So as long as they're watching it, giving it views, talking about it, this and that, it's gonna do pretty well until the day it goes a little too bonkers for people and they check out. And people are checking out of that show. But like I said before, the reason why I'm making this video is because I was watching this one video, I think it was yesterday, and there's one guy whose videos I watch and stuff. He was talking about, like, he's really pissed. Like, he's pissed at the CW. Like, you can tell this dude is like hurt. And so like, and it's almost like he's going to war with like the CW and everything. And it's like, because he says that, like, you know, they bring in a certain audience, a certain group of people, minorities and everything, and they base their shows around that. and then they build their shows and their popularity of this of the network and stuff. And then when something isn't profitable for them, they just like, all right, we're gonna cancel it and not care about their fans. And then it makes all the haters, and we all know who those are on YouTube, like cheer in excitement. And they've been cheering in excitement, all right. I've been seeing so many videos, people talking about like how all these woke like CW shows are getting canceled, how Batwoman got canceled, and you know they never watched it. They probably watched one episode, tuned out, and other ones just never ever watched it. They just want to complain. And when I was listening to him, I'm thinking to myself, you know, I've been saying this for like a long time when it comes to like the CW with their fake representation, because they love doing the checkmark system to bring people in. I never felt they were genuine in doing that. And the reason why I never felt that the CW has ever been genuine, because you gotta know your history of UPN. And I already stated this about UPN. People need to listen to me. I know I'm still new to YouTube. Well, technically I'm not, because I got other channels, and those channels been around for years and do a whole lot better than this crappy channel. But I'm still trying to build this channel and everything. And people need to listen to me, because in my other channels, I don't talk about this stuff. I do like completely other different like things. My other channels are nothing similar to this at all. Well, except for one. One's similar to this, but not really. But yeah, it's like, you know, I just don't go running off the mouth about stuff, like things I actually know about. And, you know, I do my research. And I've either like, you know, I've devoted so much life and time to something to where I know what I'm talking about. And one of those things is UPN. I used to watch UPN religiously and everything. Why? Growing up, I didn't have cable. And it was a brand new network. And also like, I was kind of getting tired of all the other networks, and I wanted to see like what this one network had to offer. And so I kept my TV tuned into like UPN. And the thing about UPN is this. UPN just came out of nowhere, and it wanted to be one of the major players in the network like wars and everything. You know, like your ABC, your CBS, your NBCs and stuff like that. But why? Because sometime in the mid to late, okay, in about the mid 90s, I'll say, a lot of like other networks were starting to like diversify their shows. They started having more black comedies to build their networks. Fox did this. And then when they built their networks and stuff, then they're like, all right, let's cancel it and like bring in a bunch of like white shows. And that's exactly what they did. And that was going on with a lot of these other networks. I remember it's basically what's ever popular going on in the world. That's what networks are going to latch on to and build their product on. Diversity has been a huge cash grab in the past 10 years now, even a little bit longer, maybe 15, I'll say, probably 15, but mostly 10. And there was a point in time when ABC shows on Wednesday, their comedy shows, they decided, yo, we need more diversity. So what did they do? They started bringing in more diverse shows. They brought in Blackish. They brought in Off the Boat, Dr. Ken, Speechless. I was like very shocked and surprised they did that. And then they did one, they did the Goldbergs, and they did that one with that one gay teenage boy. I forget what it's called. And so they started having like all these diverse shows and about different topics and things about diversity, sexuality, race, religion, stuff like that. And then they canceled Last Man Standing because of something Tim Allen said. And then that caused people to get pissed. And then at some point in time, you started to notice something. A lot of their diverse shows started disappearing within seconds, all getting canceled within the same year. And it was kind of like, huh, so your experiment worked at first, but then when you had backlash because of something you canceled, now you got cold feet, and then you started to appealing to the masses. And what are the masses? The white masses. And then more white comedy shows started coming back and everything. And so this is exactly what networks do. This is exactly what the CW done. And this is exactly what UPN started to do. But it flipped the script. So UPN flipped the script. See, when UPN started, it struggled. It struggled since day one to halfway into its runtime. When UPN first started, they tried to be like every other network. They had a bunch of white program shows, and they had a variety of shows. They had white comedies, they had westerns, they had period pieces, they had sci-fi shows, they had comedy sci-fi shows, they had a sci-fi medical drama of all things. They had white dramas, white action shows. All of those shows tanked, and they got canceled within one season. And so UPN was struggling, and they didn't want to shut down because they really wanted to, like, strive and everything. So I think they changed like their president at some point, and then he started to see shows that didn't get canceled and started getting renewed. And what was those shows? Three in particular: Star Trek Voyager, which is, of course, Star Trek is sci-fi, and two black comedies, Moesha and Malcolm and Eddie. Those shows were very popular amongst the black audience. People was watching. And then so he thought to himself, I think I got something going on here. So what did he do? He started having black comedies produced left and right. Some of those lasted, some of those didn't. Some of those still only flopped in the first season. However, I have recently last year, like I said, went back and I started watching a lot of UPN pilots on YouTube from a lot of the different shows. Those shows weren't that bad. The only problem with them is that they couldn't find an audience because at that point in time, not every black person was watching UPN. And also, they didn't have no huge star power behind them. It was mostly people who were new to the game of acting or people who had did like guest appearances and this and that. And so, like, a lot of those shows flopped, but then a lot of them actually started doing well when they started bringing in big names. Chris Rock has even said, one of the reasons why he went to UPN is, and he even praised UPN. He said it's a network that caters to black people, and the thing for that was like, because if you wanted to have a black show, you had to put it on BET. But BET, you have to pay for it with cable. UPN was free. And so that's what he liked about it. You could have all these black people who don't want to pay for BET, and they can come to UPN. And the UPN people, they saw that. And that's when they started having black comedies left and right. And so, but a lot of them shows that was very popular, like Moesha and Malcolm in the Middle, started to do badly because, well, with Moesha, there were creative differences between the cast, and they didn't like. Some people didn't like the idea of Brandy bringing her brother into the show for nepotism, and they started to wanted to write the characters in a very bad light, and a lot of them have. They betrayed the father as a person who cheated years ago and made like a son, which was the Ray J character. They made the youngest boy of the show be like a drug addict. Then in the finale, Moesha might be pregnant and everything. And so the mother of that show, she was just kind of like, why in the world would you establish this proud black family and then bring them down with all this bad stuff towards the end of the series? And that's eventually what canceled the show. But then they made a spinoff. With Malcolm and Eddie, that got they see that even though they appealed to that black audience, they still wanted to bring in white people. So they started like firing a bunch of people on the show, and then they brought in like a white character. They actually brought in the voice of Spider-Man from the 90s. I didn't even know that because I had stopped watching Malcolm and Eddie at some point. And so it didn't really gel well with the audience and stuff. But then they had a couple other shows, and then they started bringing in that started doing more popular. that got some other shows canceled. Like a lot of their white comedy shows, I watched every single last one of them. There was only like two I actually liked, but barely liked and everything. Like they was good and I liked them. And I can't even find them on YouTube. And then so a lot of that black comedies, I really didn't watch a lot of those because at some point in time I started to phase out of UPN because a lot of my shows were getting canceled. And one of the major ones because I never liked Moesha. I don't like Brandy. But some of them other shows I did like, I like the Parkers, I like Malcolm and Eddie. I liked a lot of the other ones they canceled and stuff, the black comedy ones. And then so, but another reason why a lot of those black comedy shows got canceled after one season is because they tried to be like other shows that were already established, like from the 80s and the 70s and some of them were in the 90s and stuff. And then so like, a lot of the other black shows lasted until the end of UPN and the creation of the CW. I'll get into that just a little bit later. So then the other show I'm talking about UPN. Not UPN. Star Trek Voyager. Star Trek Voyager. Once that was a hit, they started bringing in more sci-fi shows like The Sentinel, 7 Days, what's that thing called, Nowhere Man, Deadly Games, and some of those did good and some of those did not. Some of those were even based off movies that weren't even called that. Nowhere Man was based off the net. Now as for Deadly Games, I actually liked that. It was cheesy, it had bad CGI, but it had a cool premise. I think it was based off of Johnny Mnemonic or something like that. I can't really remember, but it was where video games come to life and they try to kill people. Anyway, so that's what UPN was doing at that time. Whatever was popular, they cash grabbed on it. The show Dilbert, the cartoon series created by the comic book creator, it was a good show, but it got canceled because of all the black comedies, and he's still pissed till this day. And he has anger at black people on Twitter by the way he talks about it and stuff. and stuff. But that's what UPN did. If something was popular, they cash grabbed on it and made tons of stuff that was similar to it. So this is nothing new. Now, over on the WB side, all their shows were pretty much the same. Nothing but white people. White dramas, white action, white sci-fi, white comedy. And if there was a person of color in there, it'll be that one lonely black person who really sometimes had something to do and sometimes they really didn't. And that's basically all WB was and everything. And then they combined to that of the CW. And then this is what happened after that. They took their most popular shows that were still airing from both networks and put them on the CW. So things like Smallville, Girlfriends, America Next Top Model, and like what is it, the Chris Rock show. Everybody hates Chris. Like stuff like that came over, and so did WWE SmackDown. And so like with that, the CW, which was mainly just run by CBS, they decided, you know what? We're gonna go back to the old school stuff because we've noticed something. Not that many white people was watching UPN stuff unless it was the sci-fi stuff, and then the sci-fi stuff got canceled. And you know, they thought, well, you know, black people aren't gonna bring in that much money and stuff. And they didn't put their shows on DVD at that time. And now look, their black comedies are now coming to streaming sites decades later and stuff. It's really disgusting. It's about 20 years now, and those black comedies have now just came to streaming sites. And so like once those black shows got canceled, because either they just ran their course or like, you know, infighting or people leaving the show like a main character and they couldn't survive after that. I've said this before, the CW, after that last black comedy show or whatever show got canceled, they never, ever had another predominantly black show until about 9 or 10 years later with All American and then Black Lightning. And because they went predominantly what the WB stood for, white dramas and stuff. And some of those did well and some of those didn't. I remember there was one witch show called like The Inner Circle or something like that, and it got canceled after one season. And so their formula started to backfire on them once again because they have now angered that of the black audience. Black people checked out. And then they went to like other networks and stuff. And then what happened? Modern day television, what a lot of people like to call woke culture. Some people don't like using that term no more because, well, when black people started that word, it was a good thing. But then all the angry little white nerdy dudes on YouTube and online started turning that word into a slur. So I'm gonna use it in its positive. 'Cause that's really the only way to base this off of, like woke culture. That's just the sum of it all. And what is that? Diversity. Diversity, diversity, diversity. They started to include a lot of characters you would never quite see in the show. They started introducing more black and brown characters, black, Hispanic, Asian characters. They started introducing LGBT characters, which was very taboo at that time. And then they started introducing, like, they were bringing in every now and once and then a person who would probably be like disabled, probably, or suffer from some type of disease. Like, you'll see them pop in a show every once in a while. You see that happen a lot in networks now. But CW, they gravitated towards this and they latched onto it. And they latched onto it very hard, to where it was, I believe it was a requirement for all their shows to have like a large abundance of like representation in their shows. And people, a lot of people started loving that because they're all like, wow, I actually see myself now. But of course, it angered a certain race. We all know what race that is. And it started angering a certain group of like nerdy people online. And they started to voice their anger in all their videos, trying to dismay woke culture. They're trying to say that woke culture is the blame for the downfall of TV shows and movies. It's not woke culture. It's people hiring folks who aren't that good at writing, directing, show running, and acting. You can have diversity in your stuff, but you gotta make sure that person can actually deliver what they're supposed to deliver. And a lot of times, a lot of people can't. And this is where most of the time the checkmark stuff comes in. And when the network now, they're all like, all right, we want diversity, but we don't have time to scout people who are good at their craft. So let's just start bringing in somebody who has a great look to them. And that's something like with Riverdale. Riverdale is a hot cast. But it's a hot cast who can't particularly act very well. And the showrunner has proven, in my opinion, not to be a good showrunner. For that, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Riverdale, all those other spin-off shows he had at Riverdale, and then of course now he's about to do Pretty Little Liars Original Sin. Please don't mess that up. And then so like the CW started to cater to that of diversity, and they had a lot of shows, and they brought in more people. They started bringing in LGBT people for the first time, like an audience, something they never had before, because they saw themselves represented in those TV shows. And so CW just ran with this for many years and stuff. And because like the 100 had a huge diverse cast of black, brown, and LGBT. And so, like, and you started seeing stuff you never saw on TV for the most part. Like the guy said, I never saw a black lesbian lead in a TV show, and we had that in Batwoman. I never saw transgender people in shows until like that of like, Supergirl and stuff. And so you started seeing people you never saw on TV. You saw them in the real world if you have to live in those type of cities. I don't live in one of those type of cities. They're starting to come now, and but it's slow in my city. But in other cities like New York, it's like everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And so there's a contingent of people online trying to get all these woke shows canceled because they don't like that. Because they just want to see the straight white man prevail and everything. Because that's what they love. They love big, muscular, white, straight men. But they won't admit to it. And everything. But that's the whole gist of it all is. Because when they see a main female character on a show who's strong, independent, and in the lead, they're like, oh, we don't like a strong woman. Gee, I wonder why. Because you know what they like and everything. And so, like, Then, of course, when a lot of these shows, see, here's the problem also, while these shows get canceled, the network isn't necessarily paying attention to the shows, and for the most part, they're not really interfering. And sometimes you need a little interference and stuff like that, because when it comes to the Arrowverse just got like boring after a while. I got tired of the Arrowverse and I checked out. And so, like, even the showrunners, for the most part, a lot of these shows, they don't care about their shows no more. They really don't. And I mean, look how bad Batwoman struggled for 3 years. In my opinion, that showrunner lady is not very good. If your show had to struggle for 3 years, something ain't right with you. And you need to go back to school and learn your craft. And so I know Greg Berlanti, he produces a lot of these shows through his company and stuff. And he used to be the showrunner on some of this stuff, but now he does so many different shows on both CW and HBO Max. He ain't got time to, be there on set and see what's going on and stuff. And for the most part, he trusts the other showrunners and executive producers and stuff to like do their stuff. But then they get kind of overboard and they're not really giving the audience what they need. Like, one problem I have with Batwoman that I was thinking about is that, have you ever noticed nobody's scared of Batwoman in the show? Like, think about it. You watch any Batman movie, well, probably stuff with Batman and Robin. And you watch any Batman movie or cartoon series and people are pissed scared of Batman. They're scared of that shadowy figure. They're scared of his brooding, grumpy face. I never once felt that way with Batwoman. Nobody was never scared of her in the streets or nothing like that. You never saw her on the rooftops just like staring down at the city, observing everything. That's what helped makes Batman so great. It's that cool feeling of him doing that and stuff. But they never wanted to capitalize on that. They just made a generic comic book show that didn't really feel like that of a comic book type show. You know, and that's a shame and everything. And so they do their own thing. And then the networks, of course, are not paying attention no more for the most part. Because sometimes you will have a person who is the head of a network who will actually watch some of these shows. And then when they start seeing things they don't like, that's when they tell people, hey, you need to do this and do that and stuff. And so, like, a lot of these head showrunners that have like multiple shows and everything, they can't be on every set at the same time, especially when they're in different cities or different countries and stuff. And so it makes it impossible. And then, so that's kind of like what happened with Sliders. The network wasn't paying attention. They brought in new showrunner and stuff, and he ruined the show. And then when the networks did start to pay attention, they went like, hey, why these numbers are dropping? They're like, oh, crap, let's just cancel. And that's what they do. And so, like, and it's quite a shame because when they do cancel these shows that have a huge fan base, all they have to do is see what went wrong, fix it, and then give it another season. And then when they cancel, it makes all those haters like hate online because the CW did do something amazing. I still don't feel like they were genuine when they hired a lot of the LGBT people, but I do feel like when the LGBT people were cast, they looked out for their own people and cast more people. If you look at the Arrowverse, it didn't really start off all LGBT friendly at first. It was mostly just a bunch of straight people, but a lot of people who were showrunners and writers were part of the LGBT community. And of course, a lot of people ask, well, hey, if you're running this thing, why aren't people like you in this show? So then they started to craft more LGBT characters. Sarah Lance, who everybody assumed was straight because she was banging with Oliver, it turned out she was bisexual and everything. And they added that very late into like the Arrow series. I think in season 2. Was it? I can't remember. It's whenever they brought her back and they revealed, oh, she is bisexual because she was with the Al Ghul girl and she turned out to be a lesbian. Then with Supergirl, when Supergirl started off, there were no LGBT characters. Once they went to once they went to the CW, Greg Berlanti stated, okay, somebody in the Arrowverse is gonna be gay, but he didn't say who. So everybody's like, okay, how many shows they got? They got 3 at that time. So it's like, which character is gonna turn gay? I thought it was gonna be Cisco. I just really thought it was. But then they made Alex from Supergirl that. And I remember watching season 1 of Supergirl. I was like, I don't remember her acting like a lesbian or being a lesbian or nothing like that. Like, I really thought she liked dudes and everything. And of course, this was added in because they didn't have that representation. That was kind of like a mandate. And so they needed to like squeeze it in. And then all of a sudden, they started having LGBT characters like galore. Like almost every character who gets introduced into the CW Arrowverse is part of the LGBT community, either the person who's playing that person or the character is. And then so they found their groove, and then people started to latch onto it and started watching their programming because they wanted to see themselves in it. But then I felt like half the time it was just check mark, check mark, check mark, because every character you knew who was well and established all of a sudden was gay. I don't remember Bart ever being gay. I don't ever remember Mr. Terrific being gay, and then they changed him and stuff. And so that's when I feel like they were just doing check marks to make people like happy and stuff. But if you don't write these characters very well, then it's gonna backfire at some point, and then people are gonna tune out. And that's why a lot of people tune out. I tuned out only because I got tired of long-winded speeches. I got so sick and tired of that. A long-winded speech is like the equivalent for me of humor in the MCU. I'm tired of it. And another reason why I got tired of the Arrowverse is because they started bringing in like so many superhero characters that didn't fit the shows. I'm just like, why is this person on Team Arrow or Team Supergirl or Team Flash, and their power sets so completely different from that? Because they were trying to outdo the movies. The movies don't bring in heroes, so they're like, all right, we're gonna bring them in. And then so like the other thing I got tired of the lack of action. And then the action being very quickly done. I'm just like, I want more action in my shows. But other people started tapping out because of other reasons and stuff. And so like, 'cause I remember then people started like leaving these shows because there was a lot of toxic stuff going on behind the scenes. And when your main characters and your main star have to leave the show, something ain't right behind the scenes. And I remember and then the problem is you could tell the CW could care less about diversity, because when these shows started to race bend certain characters like Iris West, or like when the CW then did the whole Jimmy Olsen thing, made him black. Have you noticed they never defended those people? Those people were getting so much hate online and they never once defended them. Even the stars of the show, their co-stars, never defended them. They didn't start defending until all these like stuff started happening in the news with like black people dying in the hands of white cops, all these protests, all these like, you know, all this like hatred and racism going on in the real world. Then they're like and then when they found out that one of their own made some bad tweets many years ago, they're like, okay, now we gotta start defending people. See, they started doing that then because they're like, ah, crap, now we gotta like do damage control. But they didn't care before. See, that's the thing. See, they race bend, they gender bend, and they sexuality bend these characters. And when they get hatred online, they could care less, because all they care is being like, you know, in the game and everything. And that's what UPN always wanted to do. They always wanted to be in the game. And that's what the CW always wanted to be. They wanted to be in the game and everything. Because you only have a few networks, and a lot of these networks are the same. Look at ABC, white comedy. Look at CBS, white law enforcement type shows. Look at Fox, like white edgy comedy and action type shows. Look at NBC, white dramas and everything. And so, you know, and that was something that was cool about the CW, is that the CW actually had diversity. And then when diversity wasn't making them no money, and they started seeing all that hate online, they're like, oh, well, people don't like this. And, you know, because like when you see the hatred online, when you see the ratings go down, when you see it's not making you no money, when you see your stars are leaving the show, you know, what's the network gonna do? Boom, they're gonna cancel and everything. But it's their fault because they weren't keeping an eye on stuff. You know, when your stuff starts to tank and your ratings go down, that's when the network needs to call these showrunners up and be like, hey, fix your show, make it to where it was popular back in the day and keep it to that formula. But they don't do that because they don't care. Plain simple as that. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.